What happens when the person who should love you unconditionally tells you that you're not what they wanted? Tonight we meet David, a 28-year-old man who spent his entire childhood trying to become someone else, someone his father actually wanted. Hello, I'm Rachel Kane. This is The Confession. Room, the story you're about to hear begins with a father's devastating confession to his 12-year-old son. For words that would haunt a child for the next 16 years, I got the wrong child. Asterisk. But this isn't just about a father's cruelty. This is about what happens when a child spends their entire life trying to prove they deserve love. And the moment they realize they were never the problem. David has never told this story before. Not to his wife, not to his therapist, not to anyone tonight. He breaks his silence. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough for someone who should have loved.
My father told me I was the wrong child when I was 12 years old, but I think I always knew I was supposed to be a twin. My brother died during birth complications. I survived. His name was going to be Matthew. I became David. My father never let me forget that Matthew was supposed to be the athlete, the leader, the son he dreamed of. I was just the replacement who couldn't fill the void. Growing up, I knew something was wrong. Other kids' dads cheered at their soccer games. Mine sat in the stands reading newspapers. Other dads taught their sons to throw a baseball. Mine hired coaches because, as he put it, I don't have time to fix what's already broken. I wasn't athletic. I was quiet, artistic, sensitive. Everything my father saw as weakness. Everything he was sure Matthew wouldn't have been when I was 8. I painted him a picture for Father's Day. It was a portrait of us fishing, something we'd never actually done together, but something I desperately wanted to do. I worked on it. For weeks he looked at it for exactly 3 seconds and said, "Matthew would have caught a real fish by now." I didn't understand what he meant then. I just knew it hurt. When I was 10, I made the school honor roll. I was so excited to tell him. I ran home with my certificate, bursting through the door. Dad, look what I got." He glanced at the paper and said, "Academic achievement is what kids do when they can't excel at anything that matters." I asked him what mattered. He said, "Being strong, being a leader, being someone people respect." I wasn't those things. I was the kid who cried when other kids got hurt. I was the one who preferred books to sports. I was the one who asked too many questions and felt everything too deeply. The night that changed everything happened right after my 12th birthday. I had just started middle school and was struggling to fit in. I came home crying because some older kids had picked on me instead of comforting me. My father exploded. "This is pathetic." He yelled, "You're 12 years old and you're still crying like a baby." I tried to explain what happened, but he cut me off. "I don't want to hear excuses. I want to see you fight back. I want to see some backbone. I want to see the son I was supposed to have." That's when he said it. The words that would replay in my head for the next 16 years. I got the wrong child. I remember the silence that followed. Even the air seemed to stop moving. "What do you mean?" I whispered. "Your brother Matthew died so you could live. And look what I got instead." A weak, crying, pathetic excuse for a son. My mother was in the kitchen. She heard everything. She didn't say a word. "Matthew would have been strong," he continued. "Matthew would have been a leader. Matthew would have been everything you're not." I was 12 years old. I didn't understand that my father was processing his own grief in the worst possible way. I didn't understand that he was projecting his dreams onto a child who never existed. I understood was that I was a disappointment, that I was alive instead of the son he actually wanted, that every day I breathed was a reminder of what he had lost. That night I made a decision. I would become Matthew. I would become the son he wanted. I started forcing myself to play sports. I was terrible at football, but I kept trying. I got concussion after concussion, but I kept playing. Because maybe if I got hurt enough, if I proved I could take pain, he'd see that I was strong. I stopped crying, even when I was in physical pain, even when I was heartbroken, even when I was scared. I buried every emotion so deep that I forgot they existed. I changed my entire personality. I became aggressive, competitive, cold. I bullied other kids the way I had been bullied, thinking this would make my father proud. It didn't work. Nothing worked. When I made the varsity football team as a sophomore, he said, "Matthew would have been captain by now." When I got accepted to college, he said, "Matthew wouldn't have needed a scholarship." When I graduated with honors, he said, "Matthew would have been valedictorian." Matthew became this perfect ghost that I could never compete with. He was everything I wasn't, everything I could never be. He was the son who would have made my father proud. I spent 16 years trying to become a dead person. The obsession consumed me. I worked out obsessively, trying to build the athletic body Matthew would have had. I studied leadership books, trying to develop the charisma Matthew would have possessed. I forced myself into situations that terrified me, thinking this would make me brave like Matthew would have been. It was destroying myself to become someone who never existed. My relationships suffered. I couldn't connect with anyone because I wasn't really me. I was this manufactured version of myself, built to please a father who would never be pleased. In college, I met Sarah. She was kind, gentle, everything I had trained myself not to be. When she told me she loved me, I didn't believe her. How could she love me when my own father couldn't? I pushed her away constantly. I tested her, waiting for her to realize what my father had realized, that I was the wrong choice. We broke up and got back together dozens of times. Each time, I was sure it was because she finally saw who I really was. Each time she came back, I was confused. After graduation, I moved back home briefly. Living with my parents again as an adult was torture. My father treated me the same way he had when I was 12. Nothing had changed. One night I confronted him. I was 24 years old, and I finally asked the question that had been eating at me for 12 years. Do you love me at all, or do you just wish I had died instead of Matthew? He stared at me for a long time. Then he said, I love the son I thought you could become, but you never became him. I'm not Matthew, I said. I never was. I never could be. Matthew isn't real. Matthew isn't real. Matthew is more real than you are, he replied. You're just a shadow of what should have been. That night I decided to cut contact with my father. I moved across the country, changed my phone number, and started over. But I couldn't escape what he had put in my head. I was still trying to be Matthew. I was still living as someone else. I started therapy when I was 26. It took 2 years of weekly sessions before I could even admit what my father had said to me. I had buried it so deep that I convinced myself it was normal. My therapist helped me understand that my father had created Matthew as a way to avoid dealing with his own grief. Matthew wasn't a real person, he was a fantasy, a projection of everything my father wanted but couldn't have. I had spent my entire life competing with a ghost. Slowly I started to remember who I was before that night. I was creative. I was empathetic. I was thoughtful. I was sensitive. And that wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since that Father's Day when I was 8. I was good at it. I had always been good at it. I called Sarah. We had stayed in touch sporadically over the years. When I told her I was in therapy, that I was trying to figure out who I really was, she said something that broke my heart. I always loved who you really were, she said. I was just waiting for you to love him too. We're married now. We have a son on the way. And I've made myself a promise I will love him exactly as he is, not as who I think he should be. But the damage my father did, it's still there. I still hear his voice sometimes, telling me I'm not enough. I still catch myself trying to be someone else. 3 months ago, my father had a heart attack. He's fine now, but it made me realize that he's not going to live forever. And I had to decide, did I want to spend the rest of his life hating him, or did I want to try to find some kind of peace? I went to see him in the hospital. He looked so small in that bed, so human. For the first time in my life, I didn't see the giant who had crushed my childhood. I saw a broken man who had lost a son and never learned how to grieve. I told him I was married, that I was going to be a father, that I was happy. He looked at me and said, I'm proud of you. For a moment, I felt that old, desperate need for his approval. But then I realized something. It didn't matter anymore. I didn't need his pride. I had found my own. I'm not Matthew, I told him. I never was Matthew, but I'm a good man. I'm a good husband. I'm going to be a good father, and that's enough. He started to cry. In 28 years I had never seen my father cry. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I loved you. I always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he really loved me or if he just finally understood what he had done. But I realized it didn't matter. I had spent my entire life waiting for those words, but by the time I heard them, I had already learned to love myself. That's the tragedy of it all. I wasted 16 years of my life trying to become someone who never existed, trying to earn love from someone who couldn't give it. But maybe that's not the real tragedy. Maybe the real tragedy is that my father spent 28 years missing out on knowing his actual son because he was too busy mourning the one he never had. I'm David. I'm sensitive, creative, empathetic. I cry at movies. I prefer books to sports. I think too much and feel too deeply. I'm not Matthew. I never was Matthew. I never could be Matthew, but I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. And that's funnily enough. Asterisk, I'm telling this story because I know there are other people out They're who are trying to be someone else, who are killing themselves to earn love from people who can't give it. You don't have to be anyone else. You don't have to earn love by becoming someone you're not. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now. Today. I wish someone had told me that when I was 12 years old. Maybe it would have saved me 16 years of living as a ghost. But I'm telling you now, you are enough.
David. Thank you. Thank you for having the courage to share something so deeply personal, so painful, and ultimately so healing. What you've described isn't just a story about a difficult father-son relationship. It's about the profound damage that can be done when we're loved conditionally, when we're told we need to be someone else to be worthy of love. Your father's grief doesn't excuse what he did to you, but your ability to understand his pain while still honoring your own shows incredible strength and wisdom. You spent 16 years trying to become Matthew, but Matthew was never real. You were real. You were always real. And you were always enough to anyone listening who recognizes themselves in David's story, whether you're trying to be the perfect daughter, the successful son, the person someone else wants you to be. Please hear this. You don't have to earn love by erasing yourself. You don't have to become someone else to be worthy. You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's unfulfilled dreams. You are not the wrong child. You are not the wrong person. You are exactly who you're meant to be. And David, that little boy who painted his father a picture because he loved him, he's still in there. He always was. And he was never wrong for feeling deeply, for being sensitive, for seeing the world through an artist's eyes. Thank you for finding your way back to him. And thank you for helping others find their way back to themselves.